Welcome to the Big Hollow Shooting Range Certification course. This is the training course required for anyone wishing to acquire a membership to use the shooting range at Big Hollow Recreation Area near Sperry, Iowa. Upon completion of this course, you will be tested on your knowledge of the information provided. Upon successful completion of the test, you may purchase a membership to use the range. For questions regarding range membership or for more information about the range or any other Des Moines County Conservation facility, contact our main office at 319-753-8260 or visit us online at www.dmcconservation.com. We'll start with range policies and procedures, as well as some general information about the park and the range itself.
All range users are required to be certified by taking this online course. There are now only two levels of range membership, the annual household membership and a lifetime membership. With both, the head of household serves as a certified member and may bring members of their immediate household with them anytime they visit the range. However, the certified member must be present during each range visit. Spouses may each serve as head of household members as long as both spouses have passed the certification course. A lifetime membership is the same type of membership and must be renewed every year, but no payment is required after the initial lifetime membership fee has been paid. Fees for each level of membership can be found on our website. Certified range members must sign a release form and agree to abide by all rules and regulations governing the use of the Big Hollow shooting range. Members must be registered through the new online system or have a current certification card present with them whenever the ranges are being used. The hard copy cards will be phased out in 2025 in favor of an all-digital system. Certified members may bring one non-household guest per range visit. All range users, including guests, must sign in and out of the shooting range using the new digital check-in system or by filling out the form at the registration building between the 50 and 100-yard range. All members must renew their range memberships annually. Members have up to 90 days past their member expiration date to renew their membership. Beyond that 90-day grace period, the membership is no longer valid to gain entry into the range. However, a membership may be renewed for the current year up to 1 year past the member's expiration date without that member having to retake the certification course. If a membership lapses for more than 1 year, you will have to pass the certification course again. At the renewal date, each member will be required to complete a quick refresher course which incorporates new policies and changes. Des Moines County Conservation reserves the right to not renew a membership for any reason.
Please note that Big Hollow Recreation Area is a multi-use park. Immediately outside of the shooting range, the area is open to public for hunting, hiking, and other outdoor recreation activities. Please keep this in mind when you visit the area and use the shooting range. The Big Hollow Shooting Range complex consists of 4 separate shooting ranges: a 25-yard range, a 50-yard range, a 100-yard range, and a 300-meter range. All ranges are open from sunrise to 1/2 hour before sunset daily. However, please note that Des Moines County Conservation reserves the right to limit the time of operations of the ranges at its discretion.
The 25-yard range features a 5-bay covered firing line with multiple shooting benches. The 25-yard range is the only range within the complex where you can shoot at the stationary targets in front of the shelter. In other words, on the 25-yard range only, you can walk up closer to the targets and shoot from any distance between the target and the firing shelter. Just be sure to communicate with other range users to ensure that no firearms are ever being handled or shot while other shooters are downrange. On all other ranges within the complex, shooting at the stationary targets may only be done from the firing line within the covered shelters. The 50-yard range sits just west of the 25-yard range. It features a 5-bay covered firing line and multiple shooting benches. In 2022, a clay bird feature
We're here at the Des Moines County Conservation Big Hollow Shooting Range. We're here on the 50-yard range here today, and I'm here to tell you about a new feature that Des Moines County Conservation has added to the shooting range. For a long time, we've had people request the opportunity to be able to shoot shotguns here at the range, and we just really couldn't figure out a way to do a trap range or a skeet range the way you would normally see at shotgun facilities, but we've come up with kind of an opportunity here to have somewhat of a happy medium. You'll still be able to shoot shotguns at moving targets, shoot clay birds, but it's not going to be the official sport of trap or skeet, but it will give you the opportunity to shoot at moving targets and still stay within the safety parameters of the range here. So let's go check it out. So what we have is a couple clay bird throwers that we built on either side of the 50-yard range here at the 25-yard mark. So halfway down the range, we have two clay bird throwers on either side of the range. We have one over here on the left, and then there's another one over there on the right. And in between, we've got this gravel pad. And that pad is where the shooters will shoot from. And over here at these clay bird throwers is where you'll be able to throw targets from. So the way it'll work is a lot like the 25-yard range, where when there's multiple shooters on the range, you'll just have to coordinate with each other and say, hey, we're going to go down range and shoot at clay birds. Remember, safety is paramount. The biggest thing with this is that the clay birds that come off of these throwers have to stay below the termination berm. We can't have shot going out of the range, going out beyond the termination berm and falling into the wetland areas we have beyond here. So all of the shot still needs to be contained within the range here. It has to hit the termination berm. So as you'll see, these throwers are set up where the clay birds stay pretty low. It's not necessarily the ideal situation, but it's what we've got to work with here. So I'll show you here how this is going to work. We'll have these clay bird throwers set up here. They're mounted to this post. This doesn't move. This is permanently affixed. This is the only place from which we can shoot and throw clay birds. So what you'll do is you'll take a clay bird, you grab this, and it takes a little bit of force because that's a pretty heavy spring, but you pull that back, and there's a piece right here that will dictate where the clay bird needs to go. And so you'll just slip that on there and slide that right underneath that. And then this is your cord that you'll pull to make this thing go. Now, you'll need to be really careful. When this is pulled, this thing comes flying out of here pretty hard, and so if you have anything on this side of it, that's a good way to get injured. So be very careful of that. All right, when your friend or family member is with you and they're ready to shoot, they'll just call for the bird. Usually in this sport you'll say pull, and they'll be somewhere on the shooting area, which is the graveled walkway at the 25-yard mark. They'll be standing there. They can stand close to the thrower, they can stand in the middle, they can stand clear to the other side, depending on the angle that you want to get at the bird. If you stand close here, it's going to be a fairly straightaway shot. If you stand clear to the other end, it's going to be very much of a crossing shot. The opposite holds true on the other side. You stand close to the thrower, it'll be a going away shot. If you stand over here on the opposite end, it's going to be a crossing shot, either left or right, depending on which side you're throwing from. When they're ready for the bird, they'll yell pull. Make sure you're standing plenty back. Nothing's in front of the throwing arm here, and you just give it a pull. All right, it'll throw the bird, and then the shooter can shoot. One bird at a time coming out of here. The gauge is set to where that needs to be in order to keep the birds down below, the clay birds down below that termination berm. As I said, the shot has to be kept inside of the range. This gravel area right here is where the shooters can shoot from. The bird throwers are on either side. All right, they're lined up with the walkway, and so one person will be at one of the throwers, and then the shooters or multiple shooters, there's room for about probably 5 or 6 here, will stand anywhere in this rocked area. All right, so if they stand, we recommend you don't stand too close to the thrower because you don't want to, if a bird breaks or something, you don't want to get hit by flying debris. But if you stand close to the thrower, the shot's going to be very much kind of at a going away. If you're throwing from over here and you go and you stand clear down to this side, the farther over here you get, the more of an angle that's going to be, because that clay bird thrower is throwing from the edge of your shooting area into the corner of the berm.
That's basically the angle. So if you're down at this end, that's going to be almost a perfect crossing shot. You can shoot from anywhere inside of here. You cannot, however, shoot in front of this. All right? No shooters should ever be in front of the gravel walkway, because they'll be in front of the area where the clay birds are going to be thrown. Also, you'll want to make sure that you communicate with anybody that's up in the shelter that's shooting rifles on the range, because you'll be downrange from them. So the same thing applies on the 25-yard range. You're just going to have to communicate and make sure that other shooters on the range know that you're going downrange, and just share the range time accordingly. Now, we do recognize that there will be some shot hitting the targets back there, and it's not exactly an ideal situation, but this is what we've got to work with, and so we do recognize that that is going to happen. We ask that you simply try to minimize that and don't go out of your way to shoot the targets there. Try to keep your shots at the clay birds only, and again, all that shot has to be kept below the termination berm. Now, one of the questions that's been brought up, or one of the concerns that's been brought up in the process of planning this out, is that people at the shooting range, at the shelter, the firing line at the shelter, the rifle firing line, are going to shoot at these. Now, we trust that our range members are not going to do that. We have very good range members here. People take care of this range. We're very proud of it, and we know that they are too. We expect that these will not get shot up. If they do, we will have to eliminate this feature from this range altogether, because we cannot have projectiles coming from the range hitting the side berms. There's another range right on the other side of the side berm. There are houses and people that are farther down range. Everything needs to be contained in here, and rifle shots here on the 50-yard range should only be hitting the targets down at the end down there. So we trust that folks are not going to do that, and that this will be used for its intended purpose, simply as the pedestal to hold the clay bird throwers for people to shoot shotguns from this line right here. We also cannot have people shooting shotguns from farther behind this line, because if they were to do that, they would be behind the people that are throwing the birds, and therefore those people that are throwing the birds will be downrange from the people shooting. So it has to be in a line right across the range. Everybody has to be on that same firing line, on that same plane, so that nobody is in front of the clay birds and nobody is in front of the shotguns being shot. We do not have restrictions on the type of shot that can be used at this time. You may use lead, you may use steel if you want. Obviously you cannot use slugs, but it has to be shot of any sort. We do not have a shotgun size requirement, but any commonly used loads for bird hunting here in the state of Iowa is what we expect to be here. Just like on all the other ranges, we expect shooters to pick up after themselves, clean up all their empty shells, pick up any empty or any unshot clay birds that are downrange, especially anything that falls in front of the targets. We ask you to pick that up and throw that away in our trash cans as well. Please keep the range clean. We're really excited to be able to offer this feature. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, any thoughts, please don't hesitate to give us a call. Our office number is 319-753-8260. You can reach Des Moines County Conservation there. Otherwise, you can find us online, dmcconservation.com. Again, we have shotgun shooting opportunities here on the 50-yard range. It's done from the 25-yard line, so halfway down the range. With the stationary clay bird throwers, you may only use the clay bird throwers that are provided. You may not bring your own. That's an important point. You may not bring your own clay bird throwers. You have to use the ones provided. Shoot from the 25-yard line here. You can use either clay bird thrower on either side, and otherwise have fun, be safe, take care of the range, help out other shooters, train the new generation. And again, if you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to hit us up. We're glad to be offering this amenity. It's been a long time coming, and we hope it goes well. Thank you.
The 100-yard range is directly south of the 50-yard range and is oriented to the west. It also features a 10-person covered firing line and multiple benches. The 300-meter range is just south of the 100-yard range, but its firing line is accessed by going straight south at the entrance to the range complex instead of turning west to go to the other three ranges.
Centerfire rifles with bottleneck cartridges are the only type of firearm that may be used on the 300-meter range. Why? Because the bullets from those type of firearms are the only ones with a flat enough trajectory to stay below the height of the side berms. Projectiles from lower velocity firearms would have to arc above the berm height in order to hit on target at that distance. Thus, for safety reasons, we restrict the type of firearms and ammunition at the 300-meter range. Somewhat behind and to the south and west of the 300-meter range is a 3D archery course operated by the Flint River Bowhunters Club via a cooperative agreement with Des Moines County Conservation. To be safe, the 300-meter range is closed during club-organized events on the archery range. These events are generally held once a month, spring until fall. Range usage and availability. For certified shooters, the ranges will be available to them and their families anytime the ranges are not reserved. Only certified shooters may use the ranges outside of organized, approved range reservations. Signs are posted throughout the shooting range complex notifying visitors that only certified shooters may use the ranges. The signs also note that all shooters must sign in and out and that all shooters must have proof of certification with them whenever they use the range. We count on our range members to ensure that everyone follows the rules at the Big Hollow Shooting Range. For more information or to report violations, please contact Des Moines County Conservation using the information provided on the signs throughout the park. The Big Hollow Shooting Range may be reserved by organized clubs and groups. As such, the ranges are used regularly by organizations such as scout groups and youth shooting sports clubs. As a general rule, no organization is allowed to reserve ranges for more than 8 hours per month unless special arrangements are made with the department. Each group reserving a range must provide proof of insurance and must have one or more competent range instructors present at all times. The fee for reservation is $40 per 4 hours of reservation per range.
The Big Hollow shooting ranges are used quite often by law enforcement organizations. Again, the department tries to keep reservations to no more than 8 hours per month unless special arrangements are made. Each organization must provide proof of insurance and must have a competent range instructor present at all times, at each range being used. The one and only exception to the certified shooter requirement at the Big Hollow ranges are for active military personnel. Military personnel on active duty are not required to pay the annual fee or take the shooting range certification class. Active military using the Big Hollow ranges must have their active duty military ID with them. Non-active or retired military personnel are required to take the certification course and pay the annual fee the same as any other range member.
Reserving ranges. Qualifying organizations may reserve 2 ranges at one time. However, organizations may not reserve the 25 and 50-yard ranges simultaneously. Organizations also may not reserve the 100-yard and 300-meter ranges simultaneously. This allows for one short and one long range to be available during nearly every reservation. Organizations may not reserve ranges on weekends without special approval by the Director of the Conservation Department. The Des Moines County Conservation Board may waive one or more of these requirements upon request by the reserving organization. Such requests are reviewed on a case-by-case basis by the board at its regular monthly meetings. All range reservations are posted online at dmcconservation.com and on signboards at the range. All range visitors are encouraged to check for range reservations before heading to the Big Hollow Shooting Range. Range reservations may be found online at www.dmcconservation.com or by calling the main office at 319-753-8260 during our regular business hours. Now let's review some standard shooting range terminology. Each range at the Big Hollow Shooting Complex is contained within earthen berms. The berms to the left and right that run parallel to the direction of fire are called side berms. The taller berm just behind the target frames is called the termination berm. This is where every shot fired on the range must impact.
Front edge of each covered shelter is considered the firing line. No one is to be in front of this line at any time when firearms are loaded or are actively being fired. Keep in mind that the firing line may be downrange on the 25 and 50-yard ranges, depending on where the shooting is being done. Remember, the 25-yard range is the only range where shooters may shoot from any distance between the target and the shelter. At the 50-yard range, clay bird shooters may shoot from the firing line midway down the range. This requires everyone on those ranges to be aware of where the firing line is at all times.
We consider the firing line as extending back into the area where you shoot from. No one is to be in front of this line when firearms are loaded or when people are shooting. Additionally, no one may handle firearms anywhere other than on the firing line. Big Hollow is an unstaffed range. Therefore, someone must act as the range officer whenever multiple shooters are using the range simultaneously. Generally, this is the first person that arrives to that particular range. The range officer establishes communication with other shooters, controls the movement of shooters using agreed-upon standard range commands, and checks that all firearms actions are open and safe when active shooting is not being conducted. It is everyone's responsibility to ensure that everyone on the shooting range acts safely and follows all range and safety procedures at all times. The range officer simply is the person designated to control the movement on the range. Some standard range commands you may hear at the Big Hollow shooting range include the following. Range is hot. This means that shooters may handle their firearms on the firing line. They may also handle their firearms in the ready area provided the actions are open or otherwise made safe. Load only on the firing line. At all times, the basic firearm safety rules must be observed. These are 1. Always keep the firearm pointed in a safe direction. 2. Always keep your finger out of the trigger guard until you're ready to shoot. And 3. Always keep the gun unloaded until you're ready to use it. Range is cold. This means that the range is closed with respect to handling any firearms either on the line or in the ready area. All firearms are to be cleared, magazines removed, and actions open or made safe. Long guns must be racked. Handguns may be placed on the bench with the action exposed for verification by all present. All shooters, after benching their firearms, must step back from the firing line so that others know that their firing station has been made safe. Commence firing. This command should be given by the acting range officer after the range is declared hot. It informs the shooters present that they may begin firing at authorized targets. Cease fire. Whenever this command is given, all shooters must immediately stop shooting, remain in position with the firearm pointed in a safe direction, and wait for further instructions from the acting range officer. Note, this command may be given by anyone who observes an unsafe condition on the range or who notices any situation for which firing needs to cease. A ceasefire command needs to be heeded immediately whenever it is given by anyone on the range. On the shooting range, safety is everyone's primary objective. To be safe on the shooting range, all members must adhere to the following. Always keep the muzzle of a firearm pointed in a safe direction at all times. Treat all firearms as if they were loaded at all times. Be sure you have the proper ammunition for the firearm you're using. Before shooting, always check for a bore obstruction or any defects or damage to the firearm or ammunition. All unsafe action on the range must be stopped and corrected immediately. Never use a firearm that is malfunctioning or in need of repair. All inexperienced shooters must be accompanied by an experienced shooter.
Now let's discuss the range regulations specific to the Big Hollow shooting range. Number 1, all shooters must be certified to use this range. When asked, you will need to be able to provide proof of membership either digitally, such as through email confirmation, or in hard copy, such as through your original shooting range certification card or a printed out confirmation of your membership. As noted earlier, the first person on any given range becomes the range officer. Members are allowed to bring one non-household guest per visit to the range. Any range user may ask to see another range user's proof of certification to ensure that they are in fact certified to use the shooting range. If at any time you suspect someone is using the range that shouldn't be, please notify Des Moines County Conservation using the contact information posted at the park. 2. All range users, including guests, must sign in and out of the ranges either digitally using the QR codes or links posted in each range bay, or by using the forms provided in the brown building between the 50 and 100-yard ranges.
3. Range users may only use the target frames or reactive targets provided by Des Moines County Conservation at the ranges. All target frames must remain where they are installed. Only paper targets may be affixed to the target backing provided within the frames. 4. All bullets and projectiles must impact the termination berm. There are homes and people beyond the ranges, and bullets can literally travel for miles. Therefore, all shots fired must terminate at the termination berm. 5. Shooters must always know their target, use good judgment, and be extremely cautious of what may be beyond their target. Again, be aware that there are homes and people beyond the range, and stray bullets from the range can cause damage to life and property. Aside from this being a major safety issue, such incidents will most certainly jeopardize the future use of the ranges. Once again, be aware that there are homes and people beyond the shooting range, and stray bullets from the range can cause damage to life and property. Individuals found to be intentionally or unintentionally shooting over berms will be prosecuted under Code of Iowa Section 724.30, reckless use of a firearm. Persons found guilty under this code section may face felony charges, large fines, and/or prison terms.
6. All loaded firearms must be pointed downrange at the termination berm at all times. This is in keeping with the primary rules of firearm safety that states shooters must always keep the muzzle of the firearm pointed in a safe direction at all times. 7. All firearms shall be unloaded with the action open until ready to fire. 8. All firing at stationary targets shall be done from the firing line on the 50-yard, 100-yard, and 300-meter ranges. On the 25 and 50-yard ranges, shooters may move forward as a group under the direction of the established range officer per the rules of those individual ranges. Only shooters, spotters, and coaches are allowed on the firing line when it is in operation. Spectators are to stay behind the firing line at all times.
(11) All barrels should be checked for a bore obstruction before firing. Malfunctioning firearms should not be used, and only legal firearms are allowed on the shooting range. No illegal firearms or ammunition are allowed anywhere at the Big Hollow Shooting Range complex. 12. All unsafe acts or situations on a range shall be corrected immediately. 13. Any person may call ceasefire at any time they see an unsafe situation or act. 14. Upon the command ceasefire, all firearms are to be unloaded immediately and every shooting station made safe. 15. Eye and ear protection is required to be worn by everyone on the firing line during active shooting. 16. Dry firing is permitted on the firing line only. Dry firing is considered active firing and is to be treated as such at the shooting range.
17. Make sure the correct ammunition for the firearm is being used. 18. Inexperienced shooters must be accompanied by experienced shooters. 19. All shooters should clean their target and firing station when they have completed firing. 20. When shooters go down range to change targets and score, the range officer must control movement by using standard range commands and communicating clearly with the other shooters on the range. 21. Clay pigeon shooting is allowed on the 50-yard range using the throwers provided and the rules that apply specifically to that range. 22. During heavy range usage, there will be a 30-minute time limit. 23. Des Moines County Conservation reserves the right to close the shooting range at any time.
General area regulations include the following. These apply to the area within and around the shooting range complex. Loud or abusive language will not be permitted. Drugs or alcoholic beverages, or shooters under the influence of such substances, are prohibited at the shooting range complex. During heavy use, vehicles should be carefully parked, permitting all vehicles to exit the range area in a safe manner. we ask that all shooters and range users stay on the walkways. Please pick up any trash or debris in the shooting area. Security and enforcement. Disregard for and failure to adhere to range or general area regulations will automatically and immediately disqualify the offender from using the shooting range indefinitely. Des Moines County Conservation will make every effort to provide safety and security for the shooting range, and Des Moines County Conservation will strictly enforce all rules, regulations, policies, and procedures. The range area is fenced and posted with clear signage, including signs that say, "Danger, no trespassing, shooting range," and "Stop, only certified shooters may use ranges." Violators will be prosecuted under Code of Iowa Section 461A.44, Prohibited Areas. As mentioned earlier, individuals found to be intentionally or unintentionally shooting over berms will be prosecuted under Code of Iowa Section 724.30, Reckless Use of a Firearm. The range will be supervised when in operation at all times. Range supervision is the responsibility of the range members using the range. The Des Moines County Conservation Board will determine the penalty or punishment on reported violations other than those covered by public law. These rules and regulations apply to the Big Hollow shooting range only. Other ranges may have different rules and use policies. Disregard for and failure to adhere to range safety rules and regulations will automatically and immediately disqualify the offender from using the shooting range indefinitely. Now let's get a little deeper into firearm safety. The 4 laws of firearm safety could be viewed like this. First, treat every firearm as if it were loaded at all times. Doing so will then, hopefully, ensure that you follow law number 2, which is to never point a gun at anything you are not willing to destroy. Number 3, keep your finger off of the trigger and outside of the trigger guard until your sights are on the target and you're ready to shoot. And 4, make sure of your target and what's behind it. Remember, all shots fired on the range must impact the termination berm and nowhere else. Range safety. A positive attitude is a critical element in firearm safety. Accidental discharges can happen. Therefore, the best safe firearm handling is to always point the muzzle in a safe direction. That way, should something unexpected happen and the firearm goes off, the only damage done will be to your ego. Remember, eye and ear protection is required on the shooting range. Before you start shooting, be sure to check for a bore obstruction and be sure to visually check the chamber of your firearm before you load and after you unload to ensure that the gun is in fact unloaded. Anytime guns are being handled on the range, their muzzles should always be pointed downrange. When not actively firing, the actions of all firearms should be open and empty. Remember, the term cold range means that no active firing is occurring, that all guns are unloaded with actions open and secured safely, and that it is okay for range users to go downrange. A range is considered hot when shooters are actively firing or otherwise handling firearms. When the range is hot, eye and ear protection is required for everyone on the firing line, and no one is allowed to move forward of the firing line until all users present confirm that the range has been made cold again. Simply engaging a firearm's mechanical safety does not make any gun safe as far as the rules of gun handling are concerned. A mechanical safety is used simply to supplement safe gun handling in the field. Regardless of whether the safety is on or even whether the gun is unloaded, the fundamental rules of safe gun handling still apply. There are 4 situations you may encounter when firing on the shooting range. The first is when you pull the trigger and nothing happens. This can be one of 2 things. It can be a misfire, in which case the shot never goes off at all. Or it could be a hang fire, in which case you've pulled the trigger, nothing happens for a while, but then the gun goes off. In either case, should you find yourself in this situation, be sure to keep the gun pointed safely. Hold it pointed downrange for a full minute. If after a full minute nothing happens, keep the gun pointed safe and unload it. The second situation you may encounter is called a cook-off. This is where a gun's chamber and barrel become too hot, and the powder ignites when a new round is cycled into the chamber. This is a very unsafe situation. Should you find yourself in this situation, cease firing immediately, put the gun down and let it cool off before resuming firing. The third situation is called a slam fire. This is a mechanical failure of the firearm in which, when a new round is cycled into the chamber, the process of the action closing causes the ammunition to go off and causes the firearm to discharge unintentionally. The fourth and final situation we're going to talk about today is a squib load. And this is where you pull the trigger, the gun goes off, but with less power than what it should have based on the ammunition that you're using. This is a dangerous situation in that the projectile may not have left the barrel. If you notice a squib load while you're firing, cease firing immediately. Do not shoot another round, as there may be a barrel obstruction. Unload the firearm and check to make sure that there is no bore obstruction. Handling ammunition safely. Always make sure you have the proper ammunition for your particular firearm and only use one type of firearm at a time on the range so you don't mistakenly mix up different types of ammo. For example, a 20 gauge shot shell will fit down a 12 gauge barrel, but it'll get stuck about halfway, creating a bore obstruction while still leaving plenty of space behind it to fit a 12 gauge shell. The 12 gauge shell will fire if you pull the trigger, causing the barrel to explode and creating a major incident for all involved. Similarly, many rifle and pistol rounds look and feel very similar in size and shape. Some will even fit just fine into magazines and into guns they're not designed for. Again, this is a very unsafe situation that can be avoided by paying careful attention to the type of firearm and ammunition you use. Be sure to take care when loading and unloading any firearm, as these are the times when it's easy to fumble or drop the ammo. These are also the most likely times when accidents can occur. Fumbling around for dropped ammo can cause you to lose focus on where the gun is pointed or how you're handling it, potentially creating an unsafe situation. When training new shooters, it is best to first teach them about the firearm and how to handle it safely while it's empty with no live ammunition present. Once the new shooter is comfortable with the firearm's mechanics and how to safely and properly handle it, begin using live ammunition by loading only one round at a time. Once they're comfortable with that, you can load more and allow them to shoot multiple shots. Just be sure that the student is comfortable with each step in the process before moving on to the next. Give yourselves plenty of time and don't try to rush into it. Getting in a hurry or losing that positive attitude is when accidents happen. If you ever find yourself in a situation where you are not familiar with a particular firearm, take the time to learn about it before trying to shoot it. If it is a firearm someone handed to you, have them show you how it works and how to properly handle it. If it's a new one you just acquired, take the time to study the manuals or learn from someone that is familiar with that particular model. Do this before you ever try to fire it on the range. As mentioned before, a positive attitude is the key to range safety. All the training in the world and all the boring narrated slideshows ever created won't do you or anyone any good unless you have the positive attitude to apply the information correctly. Safety depends on the personal responsibility of every shooter.
As we near the end of the course, here are a few other general range safety points we'd like to note. When sighting in a new firearm, start at the shorter ranges. Get to where you can hit where you want at short distances before you move to the longer distances. This will ensure you know where your shots are going, even if they're not perfectly dialed in yet. Always be sure that your shots impact the termination berm. We cannot stress this enough. This ties directly to the firearm safety rule of always knowing your target and what's beyond it. Only paper targets are allowed at the Big Hollow shooting range, though you can shoot clay birds on the 50-yard range. No bottles, cans, jugs, tannerite, or steel silhouettes or reactive targets of any kind are allowed. Des Moines County Conservation sometimes provides metal gongs on the longer ranges and rubber reactive targets on the 25-yard range. Please leave those targets where you found them, but be sure to remove any paper, trash, spent cartridges, clay bird pieces, and other debris from your target area and shooting station. Try to leave the range in better shape than you found it. If you ever find yourself in a situation where others are handling firearms carelessly or are blatantly violating range rules or in any way being unsafe, remove yourself from the situation and report it immediately. All shooters should be courteous to others around them. Remember, semi-automatic firearms throw spent brass, revolvers expel side gases, and black powder firearms create all sorts of smoke. These factors, as well as others, can affect those around you. Keep that in mind and be respectful of your fellow shooters. Shotgun patterning is allowed on the 25-yard range, and clay birds may be shot using the provided throwers on the 50-yard range. Shotgun shooting slugs are allowed on any range except the 300-meter range.
This concludes the range safety course. Your next step in the certification process is to take the test, create or update your membership profile online, and pay your membership fee. After that, you're free to use the range. On behalf of the Des Moines County Conservation Department and the Shooting Range Advisory Committee, I thank you for taking the time to go through this course, and we look forward to seeing you on the range. Thank you.